The door wouldn't open. I pulled the handle. Nothing. I pulled again, harder this time, and the plastic rattled in my grip, but the door stayed shut. We were stopped at a red light at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, in a part of Chicago I didn't recognize, and the door would not open. I looked at the driver. He was already looking at me in the rear-view mirror, not glancing, looking, still and unblinking, the way people look at something they've been waiting a long time to see. And he smiled. "Relax," he said. "We're almost there." I hadn't told him where I was going. My name is Deja Morrison. I'm 29 years old. I work in healthcare administration, and until that night, I had taken hundreds of Ubers without a second thought. You get in, you scroll your phone, you get out. That's the deal. That's the unspoken contract of the modern world. That Tuesday had been a long one. I'd stayed late at work to finish a quarterly audit, skipped dinner because I forgot, and by the time I finally locked up and stepped into the October air, all I wanted was my apartment, my couch, and a bowl of cereal that I did not have to share with anyone. I opened the app. The little car icon swam toward me on the map. 3 minutes away. Driver name Marcus. 4.8 stars. Silver Honda Accord. License plate ending in 7K. I noted all of it the way my mother taught me. She was a woman who grew up in a different era, a woman who believed that noting things was the same as being safe. I stood under the awning of my building and watched the silver Accord pull up to the curb. The man who got out to help another passenger. I initially thought he was doing that, stepping out to help someone with luggage, was tall, 6 foot something, maybe 50, with clothes cropped gray at his temples, and one of those faces that had probably been handsome for so long it had forgotten how to stop. He wore a clean gray fleece and dark jeans, and when he saw me standing there, he gave a small nod. "Deja?" he said. "That's me." He didn't get out of the car. He hadn't gotten out of the car. That was the thing. I'd imagined him stepping out, but he'd only rolled down the window and called my name. I'm telling you this because later, when I tried to remember the beginning, I kept misremembering it. I kept adding details that made it feel more ominous earlier than it was. The truth is that at that moment, Marcus seemed completely ordinary. Polite, even. He confirmed my name. I confirmed the destination. Lincoln Park, my neighborhood, and I climbed into the back seat. He pulled into traffic. I opened Instagram. A friend had posted pictures from a birthday dinner I'd missed. The food looked incredible. I double-tapped and kept scrolling. That's when I noticed we weren't heading north. I looked up from my phone and saw we were going west on Madison, not north on Michigan, not toward Lincoln Park. Away from it. "Hey," I said, "I think you might have the wrong directions. I'm going to Lincoln Park." "I know," he said. And then he said nothing else. I watched the street signs. We kept going west. I opened the Uber app to check the route. The little blue line on the map showed us heading in completely the wrong direction, and my stomach did a slow, cold turn, the kind of turn it does when you realize something is wrong, but you don't yet know how wrong. "Can you check your GPS?" I said, "We're going the wrong way." "Shortcut," he said. "This isn't a shortcut. Lincoln Park is north. We're going west." He didn't answer. That's when I reached for the door. My fingers found the handle and pulled, and nothing happened. The child lock. He'd engaged a child lock on the back doors, which in a car like this is a small switch on the interior edge of the door frame, something that takes maybe 2 seconds to flip, something you'd have no reason to do unless you didn't want your passenger getting out. I will tell you what that feels like, because I don't think you know unless you've been in it. It feels like the floor dropping out from under everything you assumed was solid, because we make assumptions every day just to function. We assume the elevator will hold us. We assume the car will stop at the red light. We assume that when we get into a vehicle with a stranger, there's a system, an app, a rating, a license plate, a company that makes us safe. And when one of those assumptions collapses, you don't just feel scared. You feel stupid. You feel like the world has been lying to you very convincingly for your entire life. I did not scream. I want to be clear about that, because I think a lot of people imagine they would scream. I didn't. I went very, very quiet. I pressed myself against the door and looked at the back of his head and thought, with a clarity that surprised me, I need information before I do anything else. Why are the child locks on? I asked. My voice came out steady. I was proud of that. I am still proud of that. He glanced in the rear view. For your safety. My safety. There's something you need to see. I need to see my apartment, I said. I need you to turn this car around. In a few minutes. My phone. I still had my phone. I opened my messages and typed fast to my friend Kezia. An Uber going wrong way, door won't open, track me. I dropped the pen. I watched the 3 dots appear immediately. Kezia was a night owl. Thank God. And then her response. Calling 911 now, stay on the line. I put the phone face down on the seat beside me, leaving the call open and looked back up. We had turned south now. We were in a neighborhood of shuttered storefronts and yellow streetlights, and the streets were empty in that way that only happens very late at night, when even the insomniacs have given up. Where are you taking me? I asked. He exhaled, not a sigh of frustration, more like the exhale of someone who has been holding something in and is finally getting to let it out. I've been trying to figure out how to do this for 2 weeks, he said. The bottom dropped out again. 2 weeks. That meant this wasn't random. That meant he had been planning something, selecting something. That meant, in some version of a story I didn't want to be in, that he had selected me. 2 weeks, I repeated. What does that mean? I drive the late shift, he said. Mostly downtown, Hospital District. The theater blocks. I see the same faces. The same corners. 2 weeks ago, I had a passenger. Young woman, your age. She was crying. I asked if she was okay, and she said she just got news that her mother was sick, real sick, the kind of sick that doesn't get better, and that she didn't know how to handle it. I said nothing. I was listening, but I was also cataloging. The streets we were passing, the landmarks, the direction of the wind, because somewhere I'd read that the wind off the lake always comes from the east. I dropped her off, he continued, and the whole rest of my shift, I thought about her. I thought about my own mother, who died 3 years ago, and I thought about all the things I didn't say to her, because I thought I'd have more time, and I thought, what is the point of knowing something if you don't pass it on? He pulled to a stop. We were in front of a small building, 2 stories, brick, with a lit sign in the window that read, open late. I stared at it. It was a diner, the kind with vinyl booths and laminated menus, and a pie case by the register that gets restocked at 5 a.m. Through the window, I could see a waitress wiping down the counter and an old man sitting alone with a cup of coffee, and the quiet industry of a place that exists outside of normal time. What is this? I said. Marcus turned around in his seat for the first time. He was looking at me directly now, not in the mirror. He had brown eyes with deep creases at the corners, the kind of face that had done a lot of living. And he looked, I need to be careful with this word. He looked sorry. Not the way someone looks sorry when they've committed a crime. The way someone looks sorry when they've made a choice they knew would frighten you, but couldn't figure out how to not make. I need you to hear something, he said. And I needed to make sure you didn't run before you heard it. I know how this looks. I know. If you want to call the police the second those doors open, I understand, and I won't stop you. I'm going to unlock the doors right now. I heard the click. I didn't move. 2 weeks ago, he said, the young woman who was crying, her name was Simone. She told me her mother's name. Her mother's name is Beverly Morrison. The air left the car. Beverly Morrison. My mother. I have not written those words in a long time. My mother died 14 months ago, in February, of a cancer that started in her lungs and moved fast. She died on a Thursday morning, just after sunrise, while I was in the waiting room down the hall eating a granola bar, because I had not eaten in 2 days, and a nurse had told me firmly that I needed to. I wasn't there when she went. That is the thing I carry. I wasn't in the room. Simone is my younger sister. We don't speak much anymore. The grief broke something between us that was already, if I am honest, thin. She went back to Atlanta. I stayed in Chicago. We text on birthdays. What did she say? I whispered. Marcus reached into the center console and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She wrote it down for me. She said, if you ever pick up a woman named Deja Morrison, give her this. She said you'd be in this zip code because you work at Northwestern Memorial. She said you'd order from the Thai place on Wabash on late nights. She said you'd take Uber because you don't have a car. He paused. She knows you, your sister. I was shaking. I realized my hand was shaking when I reached for the paper and missed it the first time. Why didn't she just call me? I said. She said you don't answer her calls. That was true. I couldn't explain why. Something about hearing her voice made the grief too real, too present, too much like something I still had to survive instead of something I was already surviving. I unfolded the paper. It was handwritten. Simone's handwriting. The round, careful letters she'd had since middle school. The way she still dotted her lowercase I with a tiny circle instead of a point. It said, Deja, I know you won't read this if I send it. I know you need it to come from somewhere you weren't expecting, the way real things always do. I've been trying to tell you something for 14 months, and every time I picked up the phone, I put it back down, because I was afraid you'd hang up. So I'm sending it the only way I could think of. I gave this letter to a man who drives a lot of late nights, and I asked him to find you. I don't know if he will, but if you're reading this, he did, and I need you to know. Mom came to see me 3 weeks after she died. I know how that sounds. I know you don't believe in those things. I'm not asking you to, but she came to me in a dream so real that I woke up with wet cheeks and the smell of her perfume, that white linen she wore, still in the room. And she said to tell you that she was there, that she was in that waiting room with you, that she watched you eat that granola bar and she was glad you ate it. And she said to tell you that leaving while you were down the hall was a kindness, not an accident. She didn't want the last thing you saw to be that. She wanted the last thing you saw to be her, still herself the day before. She said you've been punishing yourself for being down the hall. She said, stop it. She said, that's an order. I love you. Come home sometime. Simone. I sat in the back of a silver Honda Accord on a side street in Chicago at midnight, and I read that letter 3 times, and then I cried in a way I had not cried since a funeral. Not the controlled, private crying I've been doing for 14 months in the shower or in my car in parking garages. Real crying, the kind that takes your whole body. Marcus handed me a travel pack of tissues from the glove box without a word. How long did you carry that letter? I finally asked. 11 days, he said. I almost gave up. Then last week I picked up a woman from Northwestern Memorial at 11:30, and she had your name in the app. I looked at him. You could have just handed it to me. You didn't have to lock the doors. He had the grace to look ashamed. I handed something to a woman once before, a note from her ex-husband. She was out of the car before I got 2 words out. He shook his head. I just needed you to stay long enough to hear what it was. That was still wrong. I said, yes, he said simply. It was. We sat in that car for a while longer. I'm not sure how long. Long enough for the shakiness of my hands to settle and for something else to move into the space where the fear had been something I don't have a perfect word for. Not peace. Not exactly. More like the feeling of a door opening that you'd stopped expecting to open. I thought about my mother. I thought about what it meant that she'd wanted me to get that granola bar before she went. My mother was always doing things like that, quietly engineering small mercies, making sure there was food, making sure there was enough. She had grown up in a household where there wasn't always enough of anything, and she had spent her entire adult life making sure the people she loved never felt that particular emptiness. Even at the end, apparently, even in the last moments of her life, her impulse had been to make sure I was fed. That sounds small. I know it sounds small, but it was everything. Can you take me home now? I asked Marcus. He nodded, reached for the ignition. Wait, I said. Can we? I looked at the diner, the pie case in the window, the waitress who had moved on to rolling silverware, her hands moving in the automatic way of someone who has done this 10,000 times. Can we go in for a minute? He blinked. You want to go in? My mother loved diners, I said. She said they were the only honest restaurants. She said, in a diner, what you see is what you get. Marcus smiled. It was the first full smile I'd seen from him, and it changed his face entirely. My mother said something like that, too. We went in. The bells above the door announced us, and the waitress looked up and said, Sit anywhere, Han, without stopping her silverware rolling. We slid into a booth by the window, the vinyl sighing under us, and a laminated menu appeared in front of each of us, as if by gravity. I ordered coffee and a slice of cherry pie. Marcus ordered the same. We ate mostly in silence, the kind of silence that happens when two strangers have already shared something too large for small talk to reach. Before we left, I called Kezia and told her I was fine. She cried a little. She told me I had given her 10 years off her life. I told her I would make it up to her. In the car, Marcus drove me to Lincoln Park properly this time, the right way, north on Lake Shore Drive with the black water of Lake Michigan on our right, and the city blazing on our left, all those windows lit up by people living their midnight lives. I watched it go by and I thought about Simone, about her round letters and her dotted eyes, about how she had trusted a stranger with the most important thing she had ever tried to say to me, because she'd run out of other options. I thought about how many times I'd let her calls go to voicemail, how I'd told myself it was because hearing her voice hurt, which was true, but not the whole truth. The whole truth was that calling her back meant admitting that our mother was gone and that we were now the ones who had to hold each other up, and I hadn't been sure I was strong enough to do that without breaking. Maybe I was strong enough now. Maybe all I'd needed was a granola bar's worth of evidence that someone had been thinking of me, even at the end, even when I was down the hall. Marcus pulled up in front of my building. "I'm sorry I scared you," he said. "I mean that." "I know you do," I said, and I did. "You should have figured out a different way." "Yes, but you didn't," I said, and here we are. I paused with my hand on the door. "What happened to Simone? After you dropped her off?" "She tipped me $40, he said, and she said, 'I hope you find her.'" I got out of the car. I went upstairs and I put my bag down, and I stood in my kitchen for a moment, feeling the particular quiet of a place that has been waiting for you. Then I picked up my phone and I opened my contacts and I found my sister's name and I pressed call. It rang twice. "Deja?" Her voice was thick. She'd been asleep. It was nearly 1 a.m. in Atlanta. "He found me," I said. She made a sound I can only describe as the sound of something that has been clenched for a very long time finally unclenching. "I didn't know if he would," she said. "He locked me in the car." A pause. "Then did it work?" I almost laughed. I did laugh a little. "Yeah," I said. "It worked." We talked for 2 hours. About our mother. About the smell of white linen perfume. About the granola bar and the waiting room and all the ordinary things that had turned out to be the most important things. About how grief is a tax you pay on love, and how we had both been trying to avoid the tax by avoiding each other, and how that hadn't worked out particularly well for either of us. At 3 a.m, I made myself a bowl of cereal. I ate it on my couch in the dark, with the city sounds coming up to the window, and I felt not fine, not healed, but held. The way you feel held when you realize that somebody, even after they've gone, still found a way to make sure you ate. I left Marcus a 5-star review. I want to be clear that I debated this. What he did was wrong. He frightened me and he should not have done it, and I told him so. But the review is not for what he did. The review is for what arrived because of it. The comment said, "This driver went far out of his way to deliver something important to me." I can't explain the whole story here. But thank you, Marcus. I hope you know you changed something. I still don't know if he ever read it. I know Simone did. She texted me a screenshot of it the next morning with a single emoji, a white flower. Our mother's favorite. Sometimes the most important deliveries don't come in boxes. They come in silver Honda Accords at midnight on streets you don't recognize, from strangers who made a promise to someone who loved you. Deja never planned to forgive herself that night. She never planned to call her sister. She never planned to sit in a diner at midnight eating cherry pie with a man she'd been terrified of 20 minutes earlier. But grief doesn't follow plans, and neither does healing. It finds you when it finds you, sometimes quietly, sometimes through a locked door. If you're carrying something heavy right now, guilt, distance, a call you keep meaning to make, maybe this is your knock. Maybe this is your locked door opening. The granola bar matters. The people down the hall matter. You matter. If the story stayed with you, if it made you think of someone you haven't called, someone you miss, or someone you're still figuring out how to love. Drop their name in the comments. Just a name. You don't have to explain anything. We'll hold it with you. And if you're new here, welcome to Hidden Stories by Banki. This is what we do. We find the stories that live in the quiet spaces, the Ubers, the waiting rooms, the 1 a.m. phone calls. And we tell them honestly, because honest stories are the only ones worth telling. If this one moved you, please like this video. It tells me this kind of story is worth finding more of. Share it with someone who needs it tonight. Subscribe so you never miss a story, and hit that bell icon so you're the first to know when the next one drops. Every story on this channel exists because someone believed it deserved to be heard. Thank you for being the person who shows up to listen. I'll see you in the next one.